So
I will watch it at some. That is one that I will watch.
Peter Pan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Pan and Wendy. I mean, I will.
It's just so frustratingly not good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give it this. It's no Pinocchio.
Thankfully.
So, but speaking of Pinocchio, let's talk about that other Disney movie that's coming out this week.
All right.
Yet another live action adaptation. This time we get the much ballyhooed, and depending on what corners of the internet you're on, the much maligned Little Mermaid. Directed by Rob Marshall, starring Halle Bailey, Melissa McCarthy, Javier Bardem. Yeah. So we get fresh off the heels of Disney's recent live action adaptation of Peter Pan and Wendy, which y'all weren't listening to me talk about before we started. And last year's not very well received Pinocchio. We get The Little Mermaid. They've made no secret that they've updated it. Read that how you will, depending on what corners of the internet you're on.
Well, but my reaction to that would be just a little bit. Like, I mean, it's not like, oh wow, this is incredibly progressive, or whatever. Yes, there's been a Minor tweaking.
I'll argue the severity of that in a second, but yeah, so it is the Little Mermaid that you kind of know. Ariel, rebellious daughter, underwater, not happy where she's at. Shocking for a teenager, I know. Wants to get out and see the big wide world. There's a prince. There's a shipwreck. There's a crab. There's a flounder. There's a seagull. Voiced by Aquafina.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I get that we no longer have. Anyway, but yeah, it's Aquafina. Sea witch, bad things happen. So yes, the basic plot elements of your classic Little Mermaid, the much beloved animated version.
Well, yeah, I was going to say not the original story.
No,
but yes,
the classic Disney animated.
That version, yes.
That version.
Because we're not going to go into depth about what the original version was and how it was a cautionary tale, but a completely different, opposite cautionary tale. Well,
it's like if you watch anything based on a Grimm fairy tale, it's like, no, you're not. You're watching something, that goes back to the inspired by, based on argument. It's like inspired by the original Grimm fairy tale, but not really the Grimm fairy tale.
This one, I would say in particular, they did alter it to make it even more of a happy ending than I think the animated film had, and that I didn't necessarily expect, but. Sure, why not? If you're gonna have a happy ending, let's make it the happiest ending that we can possibly come up with.
It's just sickeningly sweet, happy ending. So let's talk about. Let's start with the easy stuff. Let's start with the music. All of the original songs, I believe, and a couple. New songs, but the original songs, a couple of well-noted tweaks that I wouldn't have noticed because I'm not a huge musical person. I mean, I watched Little Mermaid back in the day. I know what the songs were, but it's like if I wasn't listening for certain changes, I wouldn't have picked them out. So whatever. Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote 3 or 4 new songs. For
the lyrics,
movie. Yeah, none of which felt like they fit in this movie to me.
I would agree with that.
They didn't mesh with the original music. They felt really just kind of plunked in spots. So as talented as he is, maybe in this case more is not necessarily better.
Yeah, I mean, there's one particular one that he does that it's. If you didn't know he was involved, you would know he was involved. And that's not. I mean, I love don't get me wrong. I love Hamilton. I love In the Heights. I love what he did in those worlds. I haven't been as much of a fan for the stuff he's added to the Disney catalog. I can't tell you exactly why. But I think part of it, if I'm watching a movie and I go, oh, wait a minute, I know who wrote this song. And it's not really like supposed to, you're not supposed to know that.
Right.
In this film. That's not supposed to be, he didn't need to be there. No. And the songs that they added didn't need to be there, and they didn't. So it's, this is a film that's over 2 hours long, or 2 hours long.
2:15.
Yeah, which is like what, a half hour, 45 minutes longer than the original film.
Yeah.
So I think at some point, look, they want to have new songs so they can get nominated for best,
original song. None of these deserve a nomination,
but they will. One of
them will.
Inevitably, one of these songs will get, something, just because.
Yeah, probably Uncharted Waters.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Yeah, probably.
Since they call back to it later in the movie.
Yeah, it's the one that. Yeah. I have a lot of issues with this film, but a lot of the issues I have with this film, I also had with the original animated film.
Okay.
And so I don't think that, for me, this is the improved version or a better version of that film. To me, it's that film with a few more problems and a couple things that work. There are certain scenes that are clearly shot for shot straight out of the other, out of the animated film. Yep. And someone needs to realize at some point that sometimes what works in animation does not work in live action. Like, you can do certain things, but there are certain moments where you're just like, well, that wasn't as, like hair moves in a certain way in real life.
Yeah.
That cartoons can ignore. And anyway, there's just moments that were like, okay, that's a little too obvious. Yeah. I know that's an iconic moment in that movie, but really, shouldn't you be making an iconic moment for this movie? I don't know. It's a debate about all the Disney live action films that you could go into. I will say this is not as bad as Jungle Book. This is not as bad as Pinocchio.
No, Pinocchio was just terrible.
But
terrible.
This film at least knows, hey, look, this is what we're doing. Whereas I think that was the big thing. Jungle Book tried to be two things at once, and you can only really be one thing. And that's either true to really true to the original, or branch out. This does a little branching out. You get more Prince stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
Well, okay. Let's talk about that for a second, because you're brushing right up against one of my problems with this film.
Okay.
And the changes that they've made. The original film is a love story.
Yeah.
Between Ariel and Eric.
Yeah.
By doing, and I don't know how much I want to spoil. Well, it's not really a spoiler because it's out there. Ursula makes Ariel human for 3 days, and unless she gets a kiss of true love by the end of the third day. Same story, but removes her memory of knowing that.
Yeah.
So it's girl with amnesia on shore with the guy that she's in love with, but not. So one of the major character motivations from the original story is removed. And again, my problem is that if that's all they remove, which is really all they did, other things start to fall apart. So Kiss the Girl, that whole musical scene feels different.
Oh, it's radically different.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And that's when they made some lyrical changes too, but that I don't care. You just watch it and it just feels different. when Sebastian, they do Under the Sea, even that song, which is one of my favorites from the original, it's not as lively as the original. It feels flat.
Yeah,
I don't get it. But like I said, going back to that, you take out one of the central character motivations, and things are not going to fall together as well as they should unless you replace it with something, and they don't.
Well,
they've removed it because it's not important that she's in love with him.
Well, and I think, and I don't know that. I don't know. I don't see what, I don't know how that improves the story. But and I should say that I actually kind of hate Kiss the Girl in general.
Even from the original.
Yes.
But at least it's a central plot point that they've established for her motivation.
And I understand that, but I also think, and again, this goes back to issues that I have with what the original story was about and what the original narrative was about, and then and what it's become. And I that's why I need to just be very open and say I have issues with Disney's Little Mermaid before this. I'm not one of the people who saw that as a cinematic high mark for Disney. Financially, it kicked off a pretty good era for them.
Right.
But fundamentally, if you ask me to watch The Little Mermaid, I would probably tell you I have to wash my hair or I mean, I would like go scratching for just something else to do.
I may have mentioned this before. I'm going to loan it to you. It was my boss's old thing when we would ask him to support us when we were active duty. We're like, hey, boss, the shop softball team's playing tonight. You coming? He would look at his watch and he goes, I have anything better to do.
Yeah.
So if you ever need an out, people, just remember, just kind of look at your watch and go, I have anything better to do.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But no, I get. But see, the longer you.
Yeah.
Good.
So I don't, as somebody who already wasn't really enchanted by this thing that so many people were enchanted by, I think it's important that they realize that I didn't like the taste of the Kool-Aid ever, really.
Would it help if I told you that on recent reflection, Kiss the Girl is not problematic? And I know that I'm going to get calls, but hear me out. Kiss the Girl is them trying to get Eric to kiss her, which she wants because she's in love with him and needs to happen.
Yes.
So it's not like they're trying to make him do something that she doesn't want to happen.
Correct.
So this is not like some weird frat guys trying to encourage their buddy to date rape the sorority chick.
No, and this is even less. It's even different than Snow White, where Prince Charming never met him, don't know him.
Right.
Comes up.
You can argue that problematic stuff, that Sleeping Beauty, all the live long day.
Yeah.
But I will argue that Kiss the Girl is actually not. But again, now you update it the way they have, and now it's them trying to get him to do something that she, at that moment, because of the narrative they've crafted, doesn't want to happen. So now they've actually made it problematic in the way they thought they were fixing.
I don't know that she doesn't want it to happen, but I think that she's...
Well, every time it starts to happen, she goes out of her head. She doesn't want to be kissed. That's part of the spell.
Yeah.
So again, they've created a more problematic exchange.
Maybe. I
chew on it for a while, and then you can tell me I'm right.
I don't want to overthink that one. I mean, for me, it's like I don't care, I guess.
No, and that's the sad thing, is that I can argue all this, and I don't really care about this movie because it's not my movie.
Well, it's hard for me to get worked up over it because I've already, at some point in my life, been worked up over The Little Mermaid and what they did with it, and it's just like, and I think this is a film that certain people are going to like no matter what.
Yes.
And I think that this is a film that whatever my critical take on it, one of the things that really annoys me about this film is that there are sections where nothing happens, but they're showing you pretty things. And you can show me pretty things while things happen, and I will still see those pretty things.
Yes.
You don't have to like emphasize this is the pretty stuff, and then have the story go.
Avatar syndrome.
Yeah, there's a bit of that absolutely in there. It's like, no, just have the world that they exist in very pretty. That's fine, but let them be doing stuff in it. Let's not. You don't have to be like, oh, this is where we copy documentaries and we follow these fish that have absolutely nothing to do with the story, but they're going to go over here and they're going to, I mean, a little bit of that's fine, but there's so much of that at the beginning. I just, and I didn't particularly like the CGI work.
No, it's not great. There are parts when it's actually terrible.
It was like, couldn't you go and shoot a real reef or something? I mean, don't we have? And maybe we don't anymore. Maybe that's.
I'm fairly certain that James Cameron somewhere has got a huge amount
footage of
8K underwater footage that they could license. Or that's probably owned by Nat Geo at this point. Doesn't Disney own Nat Geo?
Yes, they do. So
so there, problem solved.
Anyway, but to me that's a little problematic again, because there are definitely moments where you're like, there's only one real thing in this entire picture, and that's the actor.
Yep.
And even that's a little skewed because the effects that they're doing to make the hair move in the water and things. So even the things that are real in this film aren't completely real.
And they're only real from the waist up.
Yeah. I have friends who do the whole mermaid thing, and their mermaid outfits are more convincing than what we got, I think, in this movie. Because it just feels like they slapped some CGI, or I mean, it I don't know. There's just an aspect of it that I was just like, it's not even. It wasn't as enchanting or as pretty or as, I mean, there are people who do the whole mermaid thing, and you watch them, you think, well, that's amazing.
Right.
I mean, how do you swim like that? How do you do, and watching this film, it was just like, computers.
It was very clunky. The motion a lot of times was very clunky. It felt human. It didn't feel.
I don't know.
person.
Well, and I think part of my problem too is, and I don't know if I felt this way about the original or not, but for me, it's important that we like the world that she lives in, so that when she wants to leave it, there's that part of it that says, oh, no. We know what the real world's like. You're coming into the world that we know. You want to stay in your world. Your dad actually isn't wrong.
Right. Well, and that's the whole point of the Under the Sea number.
Yes.
And again, it's like, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Daveed Diggs is great, but no, he's great.
Yeah.
This performance is not. I mean, so as Sebastian, and.
Well, and then there's also the art design with Sebastian that I think is a little.
The art design for him and Flounder.
Yeah,
and I mean,
Flounder, for me, if Flounder doesn't talk nearly as much as he does, it's better.
And there are stretches where he doesn't say anything, and he's on screen,
and that's fine. At that point, I don't mind him.
But then you forget he's there.
Well, but what I mean, I don't know why he's there.
No, I know. That's my point.
And again, if I went back and watched the original movie, maybe he has more of a point of being there. But he literally there's no point for him to be where he is, except for, I think, once he delivers a message.
Right.
Not that we see him deliver the message, but he is told, hey, you, go tell Dad what's going on.
Yep.
Or, well, her dad. Go tell her dad what's going on. She doesn't ask for it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but a lot of the family dynamics are off too in this one. On Eric's side, those are off.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they made two key changes to Eric's family life from the original. And I don't know how some people are going to take those. But hey, look, if you enjoy what you're seeing and hearing on the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast, why not take a second to click subscribe if you're on YouTube, click follow wherever you're listening to us. Follow us on Twitter at VS Movie Podcast. Same over on Facebook. If you're on Instagram, it's Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. That would be awesome for us. We appreciate you listening. And now let's get back to the show. But it's not. And then they shifted the whole. They shifted it. It's a fictional fucking story. They shifted it to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So that they could incorporate, I believe, the Lin-Manuel Miranda influence in the musical numbers, like the Village Dance number,
sure,
and stuff like that. So, but that's an unnecessary scene.
Well, and I would just say it doesn't add.
Yeah.
And it's not always, when I like, how to put this, if you're going to set something in a place, that place should be a part of what's happening. When you make a movie that's set in New York, New York is part of that movie. And okay, this is a fairy tale. It's a made up world. But culturally speaking, it doesn't feel like there's actually any real, I don't know, like any real culture, or, it just kind of seems like an arbitrary. You're probably right.
And it is. And they talk about that. They don't want to be, culturally isolated through trade. They've lost all these shipwrecks and yada, 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 yakety schmackety. But then they have this vibrant port market.
Yeah.
And I would like to point out that they made it a point to say they trade their cane in the Caribbean. It's like, well, if one wants to do some cultural math, we know how they got the sugar cane.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So I'm just saying, I'm not going to say it, but I'm just saying, I was like, you could have just left that out.
Yeah.
Just line that out and move on. But they're very cosmopolitan for such an isolated and, uncultured area. It's a creative choice undone by their need to have a colorful dance number in the village.
Well, and there's only room for one bad person or one, does that make sense? There's only room for, people can't be bad in this film. Ursula can be horrible. She can be awful. But people can have, by the end of the film, none of the characters that matter can have a single thing that you object to.
Right.
They have to, if they had opinions that were not 100% kosher or whatever, not 100% in line with, the narrative, actually.
And we're talking the cinematic narrative.
Yes.
Not you people with the capital N narrative out there.
No. So by the end of the film, everyone has to be in agreement that this is the best thing.
Yes, there's no deviance. This is the path forward.
Everybody's on board. Everybody's convinced that this is just fantastic.
Yep.
And so there's no room for any sort of friction at the end, other than, which is, is that bad? I don't know. But it just, it seems, if I don't know, maybe, it's funny that people think that this movie's saying a lot, trying to say a lot socially, because in a way it's just not saying anything at all.
No.
Because it's not, ultimately the only person that's bad is the bad guy.
Right.
Okay. The bad woman.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the villain then.
All right.
Melissa McCarthy plays Ursula.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Melissa McCarthy fan. I don't dislike Melissa McCarthy. I think her Ursula is pretty good.
I would
villain kind of way.
I would say that, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's always been said that there was a drag queen called named Divine.
Divine. Yep.
Who was in a lot of John Waters films, and that's kind of what the inspiration for Ursula was. And sort of, I guess we can't have a drag queen in a Disney film. We're progressive, but we can't do that.
Yet.
So, but Melissa McCarthy is pretty good, and the animation of that character and the things with the tentacles and things, it gets a little awkward occasionally if it starts to feel like Japanese anime a little bit at times, but it for the most part works, and I particularly the scenes towards the end, I thought it worked much better than the animated film. Actually, there was the supersized moment.
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, that was from the original, but it did play very well.
But visually, it just felt more effective.
Yeah,
like it felt like there was a sense of menacing danger and something that was more so than in the animated film for me. And in a way, that's what I wanted the whole movie to be. Is to emphasize how frightening some of that stuff can be because it's real.
Yep.
Rather than just animated. And I know that's not what Disney's goal is, and that's not what they're trying to do. But they're the animated world and the real world are radically different. And if you're trying to set this in a real familiar world, it's got to be more dangerous. It's got to have more consequences. It's got to have something more for me.
Yeah.
That's not what this film's about.
There was more violence in the animated Lion King than there was in the live action, even with Ursula at the end, the Little Mermaid.
Yes, I think that's probably true. I'll trust you on that one.
So don't tell me that you can't have violence in a kids movie.
No, you can, but
or dark in a kids movie, I should say.
Oh, you can do that as well. I just when I went to movies as a kid, I often came away learning something, or being curious about something, or and maybe being a curious child, or to have questions is a dangerous thing in this contemporary world. But I just I don't know that the path that this film takes gives you anything to think about. And again, so I just think it's funny that people are up in arms about how this is been woke, or it's any number of things, and that when for me the fact of the matter is it's none of that. It's really not saying much of anything. And for me, why would I want to see the film if I'm going to get pretty much nothing out of it?
Exactly.
There's some okay performances, some good singing. I have no issues with the casting.
No, not really.
So first of all, let's remember these are mermaids.
Right.
If you have issues with the race of a mermaid, you might want to,
Well, my scientific question is, how many wives does Triton have? How many baby mamas does he have?
Well, according to this movie, 7 at least.
Well, because I thought I heard them say "our mom" at one point, but I could be wrong. I may have misheard that line. But again, Triton, yeah. So
they go off of the 7 seas. So
right.
every the daughter from every one of those seas represents the cultural,
cultural influence of that area.
So that area. So you have, Asian, whites, European, just the gamut of mermaids, and that doesn't bug me. That's fine. It's a little maybe too obvious that that's what they're doing, but they don't really recognize. I guess maybe if they it's not important, I guess, at all. It's right. It just happens to be that all his daughters are different races.
Again, that's my question. Well, again, my question would have been, how many wives does that guy have?
Well,
does he get around? Has he got a girl in every sea, so to speak?
I don't even know how mermaids have sex. Okay,
I don't know.
I don't know about mermaid sex or any. I have no idea. So
yeah.
I don't know if they lay eggs. I don't know if they, I mean, I don't know how that
like
works.
salmon where they just spawn.
Yeah, I don't know. You know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Is it like a bee and a pollen thing or something? I don't know. They rub in a certain way and whatever, folks.
Wasn't it Animal? Didn't Animal Planet do a mermaids are real documentary, quote unquote, at one point, which caused a lot of problems? I think it was Animal Planet, which was great. It's like I'm surprised they didn't cover that in that.
Well, I mean, mermaids traditionally are not friendly, loving characters, and I actually, so again, issues with the misrepresentation or the whatever of this film really Disneyfies everything. There's so much Disney, and yet
there's so much Disney. I love that. That's great.
And I'm saying that as somebody who loves going to Disneyland, who loves.
I love being at Disney. I hate going to Disneyland.
See,
I feel you.
I mean, if you ask again, here's the, what, maybe this would be my answer. Do you want to watch The Little Mermaid? No, I want to go to Disneyland.
There you go.
Take me to Disneyland. Go ahead. Put me on the Peter Pan ride. I'll do it. Yeah, the dark rides. I'll do all of them. Go Pinocchio. Let's go Alice in Wonderland. Let's do Sleeping Beauty. I'll do the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride if you really want me to. So there's that part of me that, like, I get it. I am all in on certain elements of the fantasy. This one just doesn't do it for me. And it never has. And maybe there's a part of me that feels like maybe I have a vendetta against The Little Mermaid because, like, it almost feels like my dislike for it's a little bit irrational. It's just it's just irrational enough to make me wonder if there's like I what is it about this particular film that
am I incapable of love?
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, is it just because I know what the original was and this is so far from the original? Because this is not the only Disney film that's radically different than that source material. This is not,
right.
So I cannot explain to you. I have theories, but I won't go into those, as to why maybe I have a certain animosity.
Disdain.
Yes, disdain. Disney.
Oh,
I have some Disney in here. Anyway,
for the Little Mermaid, yeah.
For the Little Mermaid, no. So I almost feel like don't listen to me as much as you might normally, in the sense that I think if you liked the movie, the original, you're going to be inclined to like most of this film. Are you going to like all of it? Well, I think it's hilarious if you want to be a purist and get up in arms over the purity, because this is not. This story has so little resemblance to the purity of the original story that's just ridiculous. And people would probably hate. They would hate, to have a Little Mermaid where at the end the mermaid doesn't get what she wants, and she's forced to live among the horrible people who have essentially, used and tossed her aside. So do I want that movie? Yeah, maybe, but not for this though. Let me be perfectly clear. I'm not excited. Like if Disney had done that ending, I would have been shocked, and to a certain extent, it's like, well, that's not what Disney's Little Mermaid ever was or ever could be. You almost have to draw up Hans Christian Andersen out of this entirely, because it's and it's like you said with the Grimm fairy tales. Yeah, it's based on an aspect of the story.
Right.
It's based on the aspect of a mermaid giving up her mermaid life to be with a human. Um, and that's kind of where a lot of the comparisons end. But I think if you liked the original film, this is sort of like what we said for the Fast and Furious 10 or Fast 10.
Fast 10.
I think if you go in and you have a love for the movie, the original Disney movie, and you're okay with them adding a few things here and there, I think for the most part you'll come away happy with what they've done. And again,
but I don't know that you'll like it more than the original.
Oh, I don't think you will. No, I don't think it replaces the original, and I think that's where these things get hard. I don't think any of the Disney live actions necessarily replace or better than the originals. I mean, you could argue maybe Aladdin, which people probably were upset with because Jasmine got more of an opinion in that
I don't
movie.
know. Again, I famously, steadfastly avoided the live action adaptations.
Yeah.
Until I started doing this podcast, in earnest, and it started. So no, I didn't see the Beauty and the Beast. I didn't see Aladdin. Cinderella. I didn't see the Lion King. I didn't see Jungle Book.
And I mean, I would say Beauty and the Beast is okay. I thought Cinderella was a pretty decent movie. I don't know that it's necessarily better than the animated film, or I think in certain cases that film's a little different. It's just a different thing. There's a lot. It still does a lot of callbacks and whatnot, but to me, that one, at least according to my memories, right. Felt a little more justified in what it was. Mm. But again, Aladdin different. But this one, I guess, maybe if I was beholden to the original or loved the original and obsessed over the original, some of the changes would be more glaring to me. But ultimately, it feels like the same movie with an even happier ending.
Yeah. The ending is so sickeningly sweet and perfect. And it's not a perfect cinematic ending. It's just a perfect ending.
It oddly sets up like, oh, we could do sequels.
Oh, like please don't.
It almost feels like,
we can call it the Littler Mermaid.
The Littlest Mermaid.
No, that'd be the third one. The Little Mermaid, the Littler Mermaid, and then the Littlest Mermaid, and then Son of the Littlest Mermaid, the Revenge.
That would have to be Daughter.
No, you got to switch it up by then.
Oh, okay.
That's how it's come full circle.
At what point do we get to? I mean, when does the Little Mermaid pass into public domain so we get the killing version? Wait, but
I don't know. But we got Amazon did their version of Cinderella recently.
Did they?
Yeah, with Camila Cabello.
Okay.
Which I watched because I had to.
Okay. That says a lot.
And it was a ton of wasted opportunities and some really, really, really horrible stuff.
Because I could see that working. And actually, a Little Mermaid with terrifying mermaids. Again, going back to
I still want to see Pooh, Blood and Honey.
I don't know that I want to see
I want to see that just because I can.
Okay.
Because it'll be so not Pooh and Piglet.
It'll be
Disney.
So it'll be so inappropriate.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love Disney's Pooh. Who doesn't? You can't have a soul, I think, and dislike Disney's Pooh. But no, I want to see that version. So yeah, I want to see a really dark Little Mermaid. Okay. I'm down for that.
Sure. Well, there's a movie called The Lure that it might fit into that. There are mermaid films out there that do that.
Right.
There's been some good ones, but yeah, the Lure. If you can find The Lure, I think it was the Sundance film a few years back. That one.
Oh, you know what? I think I seem to recall that one. I don't know if I've watched that one. 2015. Oh, it's Polish.
Yeah, but it's pretty nuts. It's an unusual film, but
watch them.
Anyway, that's me. I would rather watch the Polish strange
mermaid movie,
rather than this. But again, I don't, I know that there are people that are really excited to see this film.
And they'll probably come out of it happy, if
I
not.
think most of them, because it's not like there isn't anything good about this film. I just don't, I guess it gets to a point where it's like, I don't know why you're doing these other than to make money or to reintroduce these films, it's almost as if like, they're saying, well, kids don't like animated films anymore. Well, that's not true.
That is a lie.
Or the original version isn't as good as what we can make it better. And I don't think that's been the case at all.
Well, that's clearly not true.
So, other than money, I guess Disney, Disney used to release before VHS and Blu-ray and DVD and all that stuff. Disney would put all their old films back in theaters. So even though, Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and all that came out years before I was born, they re-released them during my childhood. So I got to see all those Disney films in the theater.
Well, and again, this goes back to the argument, streaming versus theaters. It's like, look, they just released the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And it had the highest per screen average of any movie that week.
Yeah.
And they didn't even tell people it was coming.
No, and it was only in theaters for 1 week.
Right.
It was kind of yeah.
So there are films that you can watch at home, but if given the opportunity, would go and see on a ginormous screen.
Well, and this is when I had the opportunity to see Indiana Jones and in IMAX, or there are certain things that you're like, even though I saw Indiana Jones in theaters as a kid, but I remember aspects of it. I can tell you the movie theater I was at. I can tell you how my jaw fell open when the faces melted, and how we walked back to the car, and but the fact of the matter is, seeing it at IMAX a few years back, and I think they're going to re-release it again. I was seeing it in a better theater on a bigger screen in a way that I wasn't able to even as a kid when it was first run. And for me, that was a great experience, getting to see Indiana Jones, on the big screen. So Disney could re-release some of these things in theaters, and it would probably do just fine. But that's not what they're doing. So
that's not what we say that a lot. That's not what they're doing. Sadly, that's not what they're doing. They could, they should, they probably should. But, every once in a while, just pop one of those back out there. Remind people why you're Disney. Yeah. I don't understand what the problem with that is. I don't. I don't get it. So there you go. That is The Little Mermaid 2023. Some good. Yeah, it's not as good as the original. It's got some issues.
See, and I don't even know.
Yeah, and Ryan doesn't like Ryan doesn't like either one.
I don't even know.
I'm going to tell you it's not as good as the original. Ryan's going to say it's just terrible because he hates that. He hates it. He hates the whole concept. He's terrible.
But at the same time, I will tell you, if you like the film, the original, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead and see the new one, and I'm interested to see how well it does and what the real public reaction to it is, because a lot of people are reacting and they haven't even seen the film.
Right.
Those people, there's no point in listening to them, because it's almost like me in a certain sense. They've already decided that they hate the film. I didn't decide that I hated this film, but I did go in with this just kind of great. Got to sit through The Little Mermaid. We're gonna have it, and so I will acknowledge fully that there is a certain aspect to any review that I would do of The Little Mermaid that is going to be tainted by my lack of appreciation for
in this instance. You can't set it aside.
I can't, and it's and honestly, they should make a movie that allows me to.
Yeah,
Disney can go ahead and make The Little Mermaid and make a film that I go, oh, you know what?
Perhaps I was mistaken.
I need to go back and watch the original, or even more to your point, I don't ever have to go see that animated version again because they've made this version and that it has a lot of what was in the original and it improves on things and I can watch it and I can enjoy it.
Yep. But they didn't.
They didn't.
But they didn't. There you go. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, everyone. That's The Little Mermaid. Don't forget to like us, follow us on social media. We'll be back next week. We got horror movies. Got good stuff. There's lots of stuff coming because then we're rolling into. We're coming up on Indiana Jones soon. We're coming up on Mission Impossible soon. We're coming up on
Spider-Man
again. That'll be great. That's at least 2 sure winners.
Yeah, no,
and Indiana Jones. So we'll see how that works. And I have my doubts about Indiana Jones for not the reasons that a lot of the internet does. They're just they're I think my reasons might be more legitimate than some of the ones on the internet, but we'll see. I want to be wrong. Some people on the internet don't want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. I always want to be wrong when I have doubts about a movie. I want to go in and go, "Well, I was mistaken." Yeah. So we'll see if that happens. Till next time, take it easy, stay safe, go see a good movie in theaters. There's still a few out there, and there's more on the way.
Go see something that you think you'll love, and hopefully you love it.
There you go. That's what you should do every week. You should do that every single week. Go see something that you think you're going to enjoy, or that you want to enjoy. So
don't be me. Don't be Ryan.
Yeah, don't be Ryan. Don't be grumpy, not as old as me guy. So, take it easy, everyone. I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you.
And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.